Hannah.
Hello.
Thank you for agreeing to come and have a chat. And would you start off by telling people who you are and what you're doing, what you're about?
So my name is Hannah Cox, and what I am trying to do is create a better world through the work that I do.
Ooh, yes, great stuff.
So in real terms, I have a sustainable impact agency called Better Not Stop, and we work directly with businesses and organisations to create positive impact strategies to improve their own impact. So that sort of ripple effect through the work that they do. I run something called the Better Business Network, which is a membership organisation for businesses to join and connect with other businesses that align with their values and to increase their own education and knowledge. And through those membership fees, get involved in collective action. So we donate a lot of our membership fees to high impact non-profit projects.
Right.
And the third part of that is we run something called the Better Business Summit, which is happening in January 2023 in Manchester, and is an annual event to bring together purpose-led leaders to be inspired and connect with each other.
Cool. So that's today. What are you doing tomorrow?
I know. Well, it's a weekend tomorrow, so I'm going to be up on a hill with my dog somewhere. I definitely will not be on my computer or on Zoom.
Great stuff. So you've had quite an interesting kind of journey to this place. Do you want to talk about that? Where did you start with all this?
So I've always worked for myself since university. I found that gave me the freedom to work on stuff that really interested me. And I spent most of my 20s working in project management and in the music industry and in events, which allowed me time in between that to do a lot of traveling. And back in 2017, I went on quite a big journey where I went from the UK to Bhutan overland as a expedition for the Royal Geographical Society to discover and document what makes people happy. That's always been a really keen interest of mine, understanding people's behaviours. Copenhagen was named the happiest place to live. And Bhutan is a country that measures everything by gross national happiness. So when they're making decisions in government, will it make their people happy? So I wanted to travel between those two countries. I thought I might as well start in the UK because we're so close to Denmark. And by traveling overland, and that slow travel allowed me to actually meet people in those countries and get to know the cultures and try and kind of piece together how that worked. And when I came back from that trip, I thought I really want to have a business that has some sort of social positive impact, which brings me after a few iterations into the work that I'm doing now.
Cool. Yes, that's interesting about Bhutan, isn't it? They changed from GDP, didn't they, to gross national happiness? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny enough. I heard something else the other day about the fact that that I think England has got very few trees, but Finland's got 70% of the land is covered in trees, and they're happy as well. But being out in nature does quite a lot of good, doesn't it, for people's happiness?
Yeah, of course it does. I mean, you know that, I know that. By being a member of Fresh Walks, for example, has been key for me to really have those opportunities to get out, and some of the barriers that are sometimes facing getting out in nature, which is like, oh, I don't know a route, or I don't want to get lost, or I don't want to do it on my own. But I think getting out in nature just allows you to have that kind of space within your brain where you're not focused on other things, just to enjoy being in an environment. And those are always the moments where you are able to be mindful and aware and come up with new ideas and stuff. So being outside is really, really important to me and something I love to do.
Cool. So I find that I often use this term about we've got to be masters of both worlds, because the world that we're in now, we've got to survive in that, and whilst we're carving out new pathways to a better future. How do you cope with well, did you come across much resistance when you first started this year? I mean, it sounds such an obvious idea. Oh right, yeah, great, yeah. You'd think everyone would just fall in behind you, wouldn't you? But usually there's resistance when you're trying to change the status quo. What kind of resistance have you met along the way?
I think sometimes what's been interesting for me is often the resistance is, oh, well, I can't do anything as an individual. There's this sort of expectation that it's the responsibility of other people to come up with the ideas or the societal changes that needs to happen to make the world better. So we often see it in the newspapers, oh, the government needs to do this, but the government is just a bunch of people. And unfortunately in the UK, a lot of our government is a bunch of people from a very specific social class within our country, which doesn't actually represent the needs or the wants of the majority of the people that live here. So it's actually really important for us to recognise as individuals that we have the responsibility to take ownership of the changes that need to be made, and therefore we've actually got a lot of power. I think sometimes the resistance is the worry that we have to know everything to start, and people don't like to look stupid. So I've found a lot of it can be, oh, I don't really know how to do that, and I don't want to come across that I'm a real expert in something when I'm not really sure what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing a lot of the time. It's just getting up and just trying to take those steps, and everyone ultimately knows it's the right thing to do. I think it's the inaction comes from people feeling they don't have the power to do it, and also people not wanting to do it in the wrong way. Whereas I always think we're not going to change the world all being perfect environmentalists or social impact businesses, but we're going to change the world by all imperfectly trying to do it in the ways that works for us, our circumstance, whether you're, regardless of what that is, whether you're a worker within an organization, whether you don't work in a business but you look after a family, we all can do different things based on our different circumstances.
What what was it in your background that inspired you to go in this path, do you think?
I wouldn't say it inspired me. I'll try and explain that a bit better. I grew up in a working class, low income, single parent family who had no money. I had 3 jobs at 15. I didn't have I didn't go out with my friends at weekends. I was working all week. I had 3 different jobs. I'd go and clean Tesco's in the morning. On a Sunday, I did about a 15-hour day. I'd like clean Tesco's in the morning, then I'd work in a pub, then I'd go work in a chip shop. I always thought there was, if you work hard, you'll get somewhere, but the system is broken and it doesn't work like that. And actually you can work really, really, really hard every day of your life, but there will be things that outside of your control are barriers to you. When my dad died in 2011, he had worked for a large pharmaceutical company for his entire career. And the year before he was set to retire, they restructured his department. He lost out on a lot of his pension. And then when he did eventually retire, he died a few months later from cancer. And I thought, that's so unfair. But he worked in a system that took advantage of him because he didn't think that he could do anything else. He had come over here from India at 6 years old in an immigrant family and was told, if you work hard, you'll be rewarded. And he worked hard and he was not rewarded. So I thought, there's something broken here. Living to the societal rules that I've been given, I'm not going to get to where I want to be. So I'm just going to have to change the rules. So I don't think I got led here because it was like this like inspiring thing. I was just like, actually, we're in this like broken system and I'm part of it. And I've not been given any of the tools I need. So I'm going to have to build my own tools and build my own system to create something that's going to work for me.
Gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So well, you kind of explain why we need to change then. What if you were advising someone else to think about making changes, what actions would people take? Can people take, do you think?
I think so. This is what worked for me, and it will not work for everybody. Everybody is in different circumstances. I think for me, it was at first recognizing trying to ignore the challenges I'd been given as in the circumstances I was handed as a child and as a young adult, and actually try and recognize the privileges that I've actually been given, which was, you know, being brought up in a developed country with a great healthcare system. For example, I've had cancer twice. I would not still be here if we didn't have the NHS with the economic support that I had in my family. I think it's so acknowledging what privilege you do have, wherever your level is, and then looking at what you can do in your particular circumstances. The circumstances I have as a 38-year-old woman from the UK that doesn't have children to look after, doesn't have a mortgage to pay, you know, there's a lot of privilege that I have in the position and the way I'm able to work, because I don't have the responsibilities that a lot of people my age have, and I don't have some of the barriers a lot of people have. So it's acknowledging your privilege, and then acknowledging what you can do as an individual, and not judging other people on what they're doing, because their circumstances are going to be completely different from yours. There are things that I'm going to be able to do that other people aren't going to be able to do, and if I judge them for not being able to do it, that's a really bad reflection on me. So I really try and look at it from a very kind of insular point of view of like, what can I do, what's in my power to change, and making sure that I'm not judging other people when they're not doing things in the same way that I am.
Yeah, it's a nice reframe, that, isn't it? Because we quite often say we kind of focus too much on what people can't do. A lot of people are challenged, aren't they? A lot of people are in challenging positions. My background's single parent, alcoholic background, that kind of thing. And the way I got out of that situation was to join the military. You know, I ran away and joined the army. Not sure that it helped in some ways, because it got me around the world. And yes, there's certain things that everyone can do despite the situation that they're in, aren't they? Yeah, interesting, good reframe.
But for you to be able to do what you did, you had to pull that power out of yourself. You had to tell yourself, I'm going to for this situation to change, I'm going to have to take the power, and like, for example, as you did join the military, but that took a lot of strength from you internally to recognize that was a change that you could do. And I think that, you know, and that's a really difficult thing to do. I think certainly when you've come from a difficult childhood, like we both have, to find that power within you, because you haven't been instilled often, or personally for me, I won't put this on you, but I wasn't told I was good at stuff. I wasn't given that confidence and self-esteem that I could do anything. I didn't think I could do anything. So for me to even get to the stage where I thought I could do anything was just this like huge chasm to leap.
Know that feeling,
you know?
Yeah. So that's the real thing, isn't it? It's we can talk about things and say, oh right, well, you know, you've just got to commit to doing something, but it's getting into that state where actually you're not going to feel confident, are you? Most of the time it is just a leap of faith, isn't it?
It's an absolute huge one. I think the superpower I say I have is I didn't have anything. Like, I had nothing, you know. So when you've got nothing, you are not what you've done it. Like, it's almost less, that bit's kind of less scary. You're like, oh, what's the worst for me? I'm like, what is the worst that's going to happen for me? If I ignore my health, like, let's just hope my health continues to be good. But from a sort of like career, business, financial point of view, for me, the worst that's going to happen is I'm going to be back in a situation I was in before, which I managed to get out of. So I just think, and there's almost a freeing part of that when you think, well, I've had nothing before and I managed to get out of it. So if that happens again, I'll get out of it. So then you kind of, it doesn't take you through everything, and it doesn't mean like you're completely risk averse, but there is a sort of like freedom in knowing that you can come from it. You've already had some difficult situations and you got out of them. So if you get another difficult situation, you'll probably find a way to get out of it as well. So there's a kind of weird freedom in the trauma, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I totally resonate with that. I've been homeless several times, and it's like, you know, I've never had to actually live on the streets per se. I've always found a way around that. You know, I found a way to find somewhere to sleep, type of thing. But yeah, it's quite freeing, isn't it, when you kind of say,
It's
yeah,
it's kind of like a forced resilience, isn't it? Like you were
absolutely,
forced
yeah.
into to internally having a resilient attitude, but almost once you've done it once, that seed never leaves you. You might forget it's there, but you'll always kind of pull it out of yourself.
Yeah, I think there's some research about the fact that I think people having trouble with it. I've been asked recently to help people with younger people with their resilience in organizations through coaching. And I think there's some research saying that, you know, if you've struggled earlier on in life, it does make you more resilient going forward. Maybe that's the case. But yeah, I like the idea of this forced resilience. I mean, the Stoics call it voluntary challenge. You know, if you look at the Stoics, Marcus Aurelius used to box, I think, and you know, they put themselves through things. So that might be an idea that when you find yourself in a situation, if you're in a privileged situation, you might want to go. You know, as you did, you went to Bhutan, didn't you, at a very early age? For me, I ended up in Hong Kong, and by the time I was 25, I trained with the SAS in the jungles of Brunei, trained by the E-bands. I'd been leading walks around the Himalayas and stuff. Fiji, same thing. New Zealand, had been over there training those guys, and so that's by the same. Well, yeah, by 22, I'd done all that. And
It's amazing. And this, and then I guess on the other end of the scale, right, is I've got friends who will remain nameless who went to private school. They grew up in an incredibly wealthy families. They had parents that loved them and gave them all the confidence, told them they could do anything that they wanted in life. And they, you know, I've had conversations with people who've had that, and they're like, I feel like I've been given everything and I still don't know what I'm doing, and I'm still not confident in that. And I almost am at the other end of the scale. I feel like I feel like I don't know what my purpose is, and I don't know what I'm doing. I should be more successful than I am because I had all the tools to do it. So why am I not further along down the path I wanted to be? I guess, when I've talked to this friend about it before, I was like, I guess, you know, I've almost got an excuse. I had a nightmare and I've got through it. So I don't really judge myself hugely on other people. I'm just kind of marching to the beat of my own drum. But there's the other end of it where you have been given everything and you don't feel successful, and then you don't feel that you can complain about it because you know other people have had harder situations. It's like everybody's got the challenge, the same challenges, the same difficulties. We're always approaching it kind of from different paths, but that doesn't mean because you haven't had a traumatic childhood or you haven't traveled the world it doesn't mean that your difficulties are not valid in the challenges that we're all facing when it comes to what should we all be doing, how successful are we, have we achieved what we wanted to achieve. Like everybody's got those same, you know, conversations going through their head, I guess.
So we've got the Better Business Summit coming up.
We do, yes. It has taken over my entire life. During COVID, I started the Better Business Network because my business is a B2B company. The reason I started it was because I saw that as an individual, I could inspire individual change, but actually to create really big change, I needed to get businesses and organizations on that journey. So as a B2B company, do a lot of business networking, and I was trying to find businesses that aligned with the values of my business, and I was really struggling to do that in the traditional networking settings. So I started the Better Business Network to create those spaces for purpose-led leaders to meet each other and learn from each other, and, you know, potentially work together as well. I feel like it's a very similar ethos to the Fresh Walks ethos. I started the network during COVID. So the minute we started, lockdown came out, we always had in our head, we want to put on an event where we bring everybody together because the magic happens when you're in a room with people, when you feel that energy of other people, when you get that kind of excitement. It's like you can listen to an album at home and you can love the music, but there's a very special feeling of sitting there listening to the music live, enjoying it with a crowd, you know. And that's how I feel about business and ideas and things like that. So I wanted to create an event. I went to Manchester Met Uni. They have an incredible business school there. They're one of the most sustainable universities in the UK. They've got tons of awards and recognitions, and they were like, we really want to support this. Let's make this happen together. So I thought, well, if you think I can do it, and I think I probably applied and didn't get into when I was trying to get to uni, and suddenly you're saying you want to help me put on a thing. Well, yeah, let's make it happen. So it's taken a whole huge team of people to put it together. I'm simply the face of it because I've got a loud voice, but there's lots of us involved. And there's going to be hundreds of business owners there who all really want to shift how we do business and want to build their own communities and networks to do that. So I think it's going to be an incredible 3 days.
Is it's going to be a regular thing? Is it yearly?
It's going to be annual. I'm not going through all of this pain.
Right, cool.
Just not to do it again. So we want it to be annual. We want it to kickstart a year of action for businesses in 2023. And we want it to be that anchor for businesses at the beginning of every year. They can kind of reset, regenerate, regroup, and get exposed to ideas, individuals, organizations that can help them kind of build this movement together.
Catalytic, isn't it? Catalyst of ideas and collaborations, creative collaboration.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to chat to me.
No, thank you.
That was great. Very enlightening and insightful. Especially I think it's really good that people can listen to what you're saying and gain confidence from being unconfident or not having the self-belief yet. But I think that's really important, that you've just got to take a leap sometimes. You've
just got to get on with it, don't you? You've just got to, that's the thing. I mean, I totally agree with you. It's understanding that we're not confident in it, but we just need to keep doing the work anyway, whether we're doing it slowly or fast. We just do it. We can do it together. I think it's just being open and transparent with each other will make us all stronger, resilient people, regardless of business,
Great stuff. Thank you for your time. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you.